I promised that we would be speaking to a former Israeli ambassador to the United States, and indeed we've got him on the line now. Michael Oren, who was Israel's ambassador to the US from 2009-13, also a former deputy prime minister in the Prime Minister's office. Michael Oren, thanks so much for joining us this morning on the show. Let's just turn to your old patch, in a way, the United States. Obviously, we saw the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington this week. There was a lot of talk and hope. President Trump expressed this himself, that there may be finally a deal for a renewed ceasefire. Hasn't happened. Were you disappointed by that as well?
Yeah, I was disappointed. I think everyone was kind of disappointed. A poll came out in Israel this week that said that 74% of Israelis think that we should end the war, even if it means that Hamas comes out of the tunnels and declares victory. The important thing is to get the hostages back. And you should be very frankly, the army is very tired. This is an army that's been fighting for well over 500 days straight. And these are not, for the most part, not kids. These are our family members, reservists. People have businesses. It's too much. We're at a sort of a breaking point. So yes, there was a hope that a ceasefire would be reached, but it wasn't. And the question is, what's next? What appears to be next, and again, I stress I'm not a spokesman for the Israeli government, is a plan to move the bulk of the Palestinian population into the southern part of the Gaza Strip, where aid centers will be open, and that will clear up the northern part of the Gaza Strip for the Israeli army to go in and finish off Hamas. It appears, and I say this, guardedly, it appears that President Trump and his administration is on board with this.
So you think that President Trump is going to abandon any effort to try and secure that deal in favor of this renewed offensive in northern Gaza?
Well, maybe he'll try to retrieve it after the renewed offensive is concluded. As we're speaking, the Israeli Air Force is striking northern Gaza very, very severely today. So maybe he's just going to wait till Hamas gets another severe blow and then comes back to the negotiating table, perhaps more flexible. That could be a hope. But what I'm told, and again, this is a very unofficial source, but my sources in Washington and the Republican Party tell me that the President Trump has never abandoned his idea of transforming the Gaza Strip into type of a Mediterranean Riviera.
He's still committed to that, you think?
That type of vision is predicated on, first of all, ridding Gaza, or certainly the northern part of Gaza, of Hamas, and clearing out the debris and clearing out the estimated 30,000 unexploded munitions that are in the air. Very, very dangerous.
But at what cost? I mean, already even in the last day or so, 10 people, including at least 6 children, being killed in an Israeli airstrike on a water distribution center in Gaza, according to emergency officials in the UN. We have to stress, the emergency officials in the UN get their statistics from Hamas, so it's according to Hamas. Well,
okay.
You cannot deny the appalling humanitarian cost on the Gaza population.
I cannot in any way. And the question is, you can say it would end in a second if Hamas would give up, but Hamas is not going to give up, is it?
Hamas has suggested that it does want to have a ceasefire, and it is the Israeli government, as you know, that, as you've yourself acknowledged, they don't want a ceasefire right now. They want the offensive to continue.
They want a certain type of ceasefire. Let's be careful about this, okay? Nothing is black and white. Israeli government so far, not a spokesman for it. Not a spokesman for it. The Israeli government says, okay, we'll agree to a 60-day ceasefire, an extended ceasefire. But at the end of that ceasefire, Hamas can't declare victory, and we have to have the ability to continue the fight against Hamas. Hamas says, no, the 60-day ceasefire has to be permanent, and the Israeli army has to withdraw from all of Gaza. So basically, we go back to the situation that existed prior to October 7th, 2023. And Hamas has said repeatedly, and I stress this repeatedly, says that they will mount 20 or 1,000 October 7th until Israel is destroyed. So there you have the rub, and it's a huge rub.
This week.
And it's immensely traumatic and agonizing. But the bottom line is you're dealing with a terrorist organization.
This week. This week, we heard a plan, which you already alluded to, from the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, which explicitly says that he wanted to ask the IDF to build what he says is a humanitarian city, what many observers call camps on the ruins of Rafah, a city itself already destroyed by the IDF, where he wants to forcibly move 600,000 people and eventually the entire population of the Gaza Strip. That would be a war crime, wouldn't it?
No, it's a war crime. I'm not a jurist, but I tell you that it does cohere with Donald Trump's vision of the future of Gaza.
In which case, Donald Trump would be accessory to a war crime.
Well, you're going to have to make that judgment. I'm not.
Well, let me tell you, under Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention of 1949, quotes, individual or mass forcible transfers of protected persons from an occupied territory are prohibited regardless of their motive. It is very, very clear it would be a war crime.
well, then you go to court with it. But I'm telling you, this is what's happening
all right, then.
in the field. I mean, I'm not here to make a judicial judgment. I'm telling you what's happening. And what's happening is, yes, the Israeli army has cleared out about 65% of the Gaza Strip. That program that Israel Katz is talking about, the defense minister would require 75%. So another 10% had to have to be cleared out. And then, the ball would be, if
Mr. Oren,
agreed to the ceasefire, then the ball would be in the president's court.
Mr. Oren, I mean, I understand. I know you're not representing the Israeli government and so on, but just the terms you're using, talking about clearing out the debris for the Riviera and so on. I mean, we're talking about 2 million people here. Can you understand that the way that we talk about these things, it sounds like we're rather indifferent to these people?
Not indifferent to these people, but we are in a war.
But there are rules to war. But there are rules to war, and Israel is repeatedly violating those rules. That plan, as I've just said, would clearly violate international law, international customary law, and the Geneva Convention.
Well, maybe you're a jurist, but I'm not. But I can tell you this
as
an historian, you got to let me finish, okay? You did invite me on your show. As an historian, I'll tell you that those conventions in 1949 were designed to describe a situation between two warring countries where people wore uniforms. They do not correspond in any way to the reality that Israel faced October 7th or post-October 7th, which is dealing with a terrorist organization.
No, Mr. Oren, that is not true.
That was holding at that time 250 hostages, that was hiding beneath its own population and didn't care about its own population. It's hiding beneath hospitals, mosques, and schools. There's nothing in the Geneva Convention that addresses remotely.
So they can do what they want. Israel can just do what it wants.
No, on the contrary. Well,
apparently, according to you,
and there's tremendous criticism in this country right now.
According to you, they can move 2 million people to a camp from which they would not be allowed to leave, and that would be all right.
Did I say they can? I said they are. Okay, I said that
you wouldn't have a problem with
it's moral, that it doesn't raise serious moral questions. It raises serious moral questions, but we're dealing in an area, even juridically, which is very gray. And it's not covered by
grey. It's not grey, Mr. Oren. It's not, because it says clearly under Article 49 of an occupied territory. It's not talking about two states at war. It's talking about how states might choose
countries at war.
Population.
Not a country dealing with a terrorist organization.
No, that's not true. It is about populations. It is about populations, how a government treats populations even within its territory. It's not just about war against another state. It's very clear.
I see. At the end of World War II, the United States, the Allies, moved millions of Germans. Millions, okay? Not hundreds of thousands, but millions.
And that was before the Geneva Convention was signed in 1949.
Right. So this is an area, and that was war between two countries. That was war between two countries and with armies with uniforms. We're dealing with a juridical area that actually has no precedent. And certainly, even in military terms, it has no precedence, because we're dealing with an army, with an enemy here that not only hides behind a civilian population, it hides under the actual landscape of Gaza. 500 kilometers of terrorist tunnels. No army in history has ever encountered anything remotely like that.
Do you accept that, as the UN have said? I mean, this is all coming at a terrible cost. At least 798 people have been killed. This is the UN Human Rights Office saying on Friday. 798 have been killed. So while seeking food at distribution points operated by the US and the Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation since the end of May alone, is it any wonder that Israel is losing such support across the world?
Yeah, that's the personal issue with me. I've been a long advocate of flooding the Gaza Strip with aid from day one, by the way, which makes me very unpopular here. I take positions against the Israeli government, too, not just defending it. And via that way, also the statistics are coming out of the UN. The UN gets the statistics from Hamas. Okay, so we have to take them with a big grain of salt. But having even said that the fact that there are aid distribution challenges, that people are hungry, is an appalling situation. It just is. We also know that Hamas has been killing people trying to seek aid. Hamas has been killing and kidnapping people who've been distributing aid, because Hamas, under the UN aid distribution, got 60% of the aid stolen, and that creates another situation not addressed. And I stress, not addressed in any way by any of these Geneva Conventions. It's just not there.
You wouldn't deny, though, that it is deeply, at the very least, let's leave aside the legal question. It is deeply, deeply morally problematic that Israel has been using aid and lack of food as a weapon in this. Well, they tell us it's not a war. In this war.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. I know that's kind of unusual
Please
let me ask a question. Okay, say you wake up in a sort of Kafkaesque situation, and you wake up, to your horror, you find yourself in the shoes of Benjamin Netanyahu. What would you do right now?
Well, I would not starve people. It's very clear.
I'm just
I wouldn't
saying,
starve anybody.
say you gave them. I'm just going to game this out, okay? If we have time, because I have to do this with myself all the time.
Of
Let's
course.
see if you can do it. You give them the aid. You give them all the food in the world, but you know that 60% of that aid is going to Hamas, and Hamas is going to enrich itself and is going to get more weapons. Is going to kill more of your own civilians. Okay, so what call do you make?
The call I make is that I'm better than Hamas and I don't starve people. It's very simple.
But are you responsible for your own citizens? You know, we have 100,000 people won't go back to their homes on the border as long as Hamas is there.
As you know, Mr. Oren, I mean, we've had in the UK, we've had experience over the years of terrorist organisations. Let's take what happened in Northern Ireland. Very different situations in lots of ways. Despite we had a terrorist situation in Northern Ireland, the British government did not turn around and say we are going to terrorise the population of Northern Ireland just because some of the people in Northern Ireland have sympathies with, are indeed part of a terrorist organisation.
I can think a lot of people in Derry and Belfast would really disagree with what you just said.
Of course they would disagree, but the UK never used starvation.
They really disagree with it.
The UK never used starvation as a weapon of war, as far as I recall.
The Catholics of Northern Ireland never invaded England, never killed the equivalent of
the IRA set bombs off. The IRA set bombs off and killed British civilians on the British
border and killed tens of thousands, with the equivalent of tens of thousands of English people. Okay, they didn't.
I answered your question. So you would use starvation as a weapon of war.
I answered your question. I'm saying it. You got to just put yourself in the feet of any leader. It doesn't have to be Benjamin Netanyahu. Anyone. Okay, so you say, I want a ceasefire. You know, we all want to see. We want the war to end, but you understand that once the war ends, Hamas wins. Hamas comes back. 100,000 Israelis are not going to go back to their homes.
But you're not going to be able. That's the whole point. But in a way, Mr. Oren, that is a question about whether whether you can use pure military force, whether you can achieve peace down the barrel of a gun. You're never going to destroy Hamas, particularly when you are killing civilians day after day after day and radicalizing a whole generation of Palestinians against you. You may get some temporary security. You will never get peace.
But the answer to that, again, is an historian. This is not the first bout of fighting we've had with Arabs and Israelis or Palestinians and Israelis going back to 1948. Today we have 6 peace treaties with Arab countries that in previous rounds were engaged in brutal combat with us, in which many, many civilians died. So empirically, you're wrong. Empirically, some people conclude that making war against the state of Israel is a bad idea, and you should make peace. Yes, some people get radicalized, but other people wake up and say, okay, it's enough, it's enough. Now, if you have different evidence that you can adduce, I'd like to hear it, but that's the truth. Now, I want to go back to the question. What do you do?
I told you I wouldn't starve people.
I asked you. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't starve people. It's very simple. No matter how bad it is, I would not starve kids.
I know what you wouldn't do. But what would you do at this point to end the war? End the war.
I would not starve children, and that is the question that we're talking about. Michael Oren, we've run out of time. I really appreciate, though, the spirited conversation and your straightforwardness. Michael Oren there, former Israeli ambassador to the United States from 2009 to 2013.